Some of the hardest conversations to have are easiest to start when all you have to do is jump in instead of initiate. This is a real heavy conversation to have, and no one likes the heavy conversations. Nobody likes the conversations that make them face their own mortality. However, not facing your own mortality is not going to make you immortal. Passion public service announcement. Passionate. Let me tell you something. So what is this Passion PSA podcast? Who am I? Well, they call me Passion, short for Passion No Last Necessary. Why is there no last name necessary? Because the first name says it all. I am Passion and all that embodies. What do I do here? I give you the life coaching that you know you need, but don't enroll yourself in. When did I start? Actually, 2017. I'd leave a PSA on my Instagram regarding something I'd observed, and now we've evolved to this. Why do I do it? Why not? If even one person is able to take away one thing that changes their life, someone else's life, or changes the world for the better, then I've done what I was charged to do. So come on in, sit and listen for a while. There's something here for everyone at the Passion PSA podcast. Y'all see my face getting fat? I've been eating too much bread. Looks like we're rolling on all cameras in 5, 4, 3, 2, and we're rolling, but we have no script rolling. Bless the Lord, oh my soul, and all that is within me. Bless his holy name. He has done great things. Greetings and salutations, my beloved passionates, newcomers, visitors, and guests. Welcome to another episode of the Passion PSA podcast, where I, Passion No Last Necessary, your Get You Right Guru, issue a weekly public service announcement about whatever I've observed or was on my mind. This is a for your consideration zone where the objective is to offer you a perspective you may not have previously considered to A, expand your thinking, and B, aid you in becoming the best version of yourself, and for others. This is a safe space, but not necessarily a delicate one. I'll never rob you of your right to feel how you feel. The same way I will not sugarcoat whatever it is I have to say. The goal is to get you to higher, more expanded thinking so that you can operate as your highest and best self. If you're new here, affirmations are our first order of business so that we can intentionally raise the vibration and start on one accord. Let me tell y'all something. Okay? Let me tell y'all something. Amen. Because the affirmations don't even be for y'all, okay? The affirmations be for me so I could talk myself off the ledge, because being a team of one, we're going to talk about that next week or in the next 4 weeks. You're going to hear about it, okay? Right now, let's get on the same frequency. If you're ready, go ahead and take a deep breath, okay? You are always welcome to repeat after me or to use this time to state your own affirmations. I am ready. I am prepared. I am safeguarded. My team is solid. I am situated. My life is in order. My decisions are sound. I am grateful. I am well. It is well. All is well. Well is all. Ashe, ashe, ashe. So, once upon a time, there were two friends. We're going to call friend number 1 Finn. That's an acronym for friend in need. We're going to call friend number 2 Iggy. I got you. So Finn reaches out to Iggy via text and is kind of talking some nonsense. Finn is saying things that Iggy's not understanding. Finn is in bad shape. Finn has decided to self-medicate in the most abusive way possible. Iggy, recognizing that there's a situation, but not really knowing what exactly to do, is just remaining in the conversation, talking to Finn, trying to ascertain when and where this all started. How we ended up here. Iggy's not trying to help Finn go any deeper into the darkness, But Iggy is willing to stand with Finn in the darkness and be a light. Okay. While this support should be lauded and applauded, it is actually very much so a source of more controversy for Finn, because there are people who don't like the fact that Finn and Iggy are friends, which is only adding more fuel to this fire of chaos. Iggy is still saying, that aside, Finn is in bad shape, and this is not the time to prioritize who Finn should and shouldn't be talking to. At this point, the priority is Finn being okay, and Finn is clearly not. Suddenly, Finn decides to leave where they are. Nobody knows where Finn went. Now the question is, where's Finn, and is Finn okay? Finn never told Iggy that Finn was leaving. Finn just left. The same people who don't want Finn and Iggy to be friends now have to rely on Iggy to help find Finn. Iggy's trying to think as fast as Iggy can. Check these locations. Does Finn go for walks? Does Finn have favorite places? Think about where Finn would go if Finn just wanted to be alone. Look in those places. Ultimately, the people looking for Finn don't find Finn. Iggy starts making phone calls, trying to enlist any agency that could be of assistance, because now Iggy's concerned for Finn's safety. Eventually, Finn reaches back out to Iggy. Finn is still in a bad way and not in a good place. Iggy asks Finn, where are you? Finn answers. Iggy asks, why are you there? Finn says, well, when I got here, this is what I was told, so this is what it has to be until it isn't. Iggy says, that's not what we're doing. I'm on my way. Can you tell me exactly where you are? Finn doesn't really have an exact pinpoint of where they are, so they give the best information they can. In the meantime, Iggy's back on the line calling all over the place, trying to see if Iggy can get Finn some help. Ultimately, Iggy finds Finn. Iggy escorts Finn to the place where Finn can get some help. Iggy doesn't leave Finn until Iggy knows that Finn is in someone else's care and supervision. Finn gets himself together. A couple days later, Finn finds himself back in the same situation. This time, Finn is a little bit more proactive in getting themselves out of the situation. First place they go, they can't get the help they need. Finn is staying in contact with Iggy, so Iggy's abreast of everything that's going on. Iggy doesn't have contact information for anyone else, but other people have Iggy's contact information. Iggy doesn't know everything, but Iggy knows enough to jump in and speak up if need be. And while those other people are hesitant about engaging with Iggy, what they do know is that Iggy is a stand-up friend, and Iggy's going to make sure to keep a hand on the situation. Takes some doing, takes some maneuvering, going around the world, but Finn finally gets to where Finn can get some help. Finn gets the help. Finn gets back to life like nothing happened. Finn is grateful to Iggy for being a stand-up friend. Iggy's grateful to God for being available when needed. The end. Story number 2. A little bit different. So a person goes home from work and then doesn't come back. They're not on vacation. They haven't called out sick. They haven't made any contact with anyone. Person is always on time, never late, never absent without some type of excuse. Not person's direct supervisor, but somebody else. We're going to call them is for indirect supervisor. So is that person works with, who's aware of person's patterns, says,
something's bothering me about this situation. I need somebody to get involved.
Is says to someone who has a closer relationship with person,
I need you to go check on person because you have a more personal relationship with them. So just see if everything's okay. I feel like something's not right.
Closer friend goes, but isn't able to make contact with person. Closer friend doesn't really know what else to do because closer friend's hands are kind of tied. Closer friend doesn't have any family information, doesn't have keys, doesn't have anything that would enable them to do anything more than knock and say, person, you okay? And if there's no response, the worst could be assumed, but person could also just be out with a friend and the friend drove. Is leaves it alone, but it's bothering them real bad. So they say,
you know, I know about wellness checks. I'm going to call for a wellness check because I'm getting a bad feeling.
Wellness check produces the same results. There's no need for forced entry. There's no smell. There's nothing that gives the appearance of foul play. Is reaches out to closer friend again and says,
listen, I know that I'm asking a lot, but please do whatever you have to do. I need to make sure that person is okay. Something is not sitting right with me.
Closer friend says,
Okay.
closer friend goes back to person's house, calls for another wellness check, a forced entry is done, person is down in the apartment, been down in the apartment for an unknown period of time, near death, and rescue says,
it's a good thing we got person when we did, because if we didn't get person now, they would not have made it.
this is a real heavy conversation to have, and no one likes the heavy conversations. Nobody likes the conversations that make them face their own mortality. However, not facing your own mortality is not going to make you immortal. Not facing the reality that you need to be prepared for an emergency situation is not going to prevent you from needing help in the event of an emergency. We did an episode in season 6 about how people call for help. Y'all call and y'all say stupidness. And yes, that's offensive. And while it's offensive and unfortunate, it's not false. I'm not speaking from a place of assumption. I'm simply speaking from a place of listening to people demanding that the person on the other end of the line send somebody somewhere with no information. Just show up and look around in a circle and figure out the problem and a solution. But if they did that, that same person would call them everything but a child of God because they couldn't help and didn't do anything. How are they supposed to help a situation when they had less information than the person calling? Not the point of today's episode. The point of today's episode is to ask you, in the event of an emergency, who you gonna call?
Ghostbusters!
A lot of you, if you have an adult child in their 20s or so, you have them listed as your emergency contact. Some of you have your parents listed. Some of you have your best friend. A lot of y'all, going back to the episode, because they're mine, click this link right here. Y'all talk crazy about the people that you love. You call them names. You call them stupid. You call them dumb. You call them slow. You say they're useless. You say they're worthless. They couldn't fight their way out of a wet paper bag. You have no compliments for their intelligence, their acuity, or their ability to make sound and effective decisions in life at all, especially in an emergency situation. But these are the people that you have listed as your emergency contacts. People who can't take care of themselves. If not for you, they might not be alive right now. But that's your lifeline. So I'm questioning why we have people listed as our emergency contacts when we have not vetted their ability to be able to do anything. I'm also questioning, are you that person who, if somebody had you listed as an emergency contact, you would be useless and whatless? Are you the person who's going to shift into gear to get things done? Or are you the person who's going to sit there and be like, oh my God? Because calling on God is great. Like, calling on God is great. But after you done called on God and the angels and the spirit guides and everybody in the ancestral realm, everybody in the spirit world, all the ascended masters, after you've enlisted all of them, you gonna call somebody that's here in the 3D? Like, you gonna call a hospital? Do you have any information? Is this person diabetic? Do they have any allergies? Do they have any children? Do they have a do not resuscitate in place? Do they have insurance? What kind of insurance do they have? Do you have a copy of their insurance card? Are you listed on paperwork anywhere? Are you listed as a proxy? Have you picked a healthcare proxy? Have you had a conversation with this person who you have listed as your emergency contact?
If I get into this accident and I'm mangled up, let me go.
Or have you had the conversation,
I don't care if my arm is in OR7 and my leg is in ICU. You tell him to find Dr. Frankenstein and get whatever the hell thread they use to put that he used to put his monster together and stitch me back up, because I ain't going nowhere.
have you had that conversation with anybody? And if you've had that conversation with someone that you are constantly saying, this person is stupid, I don't understand what's wrong with this person, I don't know if they slow, I don't know if they have a disability, I can't depend on them for anything, I gotta stand on top of their head or run behind them just to get things done. If this is the person that you have listed as your emergency contact, the first person you need to talk about is yourself. Because if you think they're stupid, aren't you stupider because you chose them? Like, why would you choose somebody whose intelligence you don't respect to be your lifeline? I know somebody who had a relative who became ill and the situation was dire. Everybody had to get into fast forward. A relative did. They got to moving and shaking while the other relatives was stuck on stupid and waiting to get dumber. So if not for the relative that responded, the person in need of assistance, God only knows what would have happened to them. What we do know is that based on patterns, based on what the other relatives showed, they are not the ones to call in the event of an emergency. There are people who get offended when they don't have any decision-making power when it comes to someone.
Well, I feel like this is what should happen, and this is what we should do, and I don't know why y'all making all the decisions.
Well, that you'll have to ask this person when they're better. But since they're not better, and they didn't choose you to be the person to make their healthcare decisions, your input right now is invalid. You are entitled to your thoughts and your feelings, but you are not entitled to make the final decision because this person assessed the situation and said, out of these 5 people, y'all 4 won't be the ones to save my life. Y'all gonna let me die somewhere.
Who's your emergency contact and why? What are your expectations? There are times when we find ourselves in situations, like we've seen this on TV, on scripted shows and on unscripted shows, where something happens and people find themselves unable to speak. They can see, they can think, they can feel, but they are unable to verbally communicate. They're unable to write. Is your emergency contact the person who's going to realize that they've been a jackass for 90% of your relationship and now feel guilty, and now instead of making life-saving decisions, they're trying to confess their heart? I'm sorry, I should have been a better one. You're not about to lose me. You about to send me off. Because you're supposed to be making life decisions and you over here crying. Who do you have selected as your emergency contact? Who has the keys to your house? Will they stop everything and get to you in the event of an emergency? If things went left and 72 hours would save your life, who do you know, if they didn't speak to you within 24 hours, would say, this ain't gonna fly. I'm on a something. I'm on a plane, a train, an automobile, a bike, a roller skate, a skateboard, a pogo stick. Call me Alita Adams, okay? Because I'm going to get there if I can. I don't care how you get here. Just get here if you can. There are hills and mountains between us. Always something to get over. I always got to throw a little music in because that's what I do. I soundtrack life. Point is, what are you doing? Who's set to save your life? If you decided that this person is your healthcare proxy, do they have a copy of that paperwork? Have you ever seen proxy paperwork? If person X is your healthcare proxy, they need to have that in writing. Because when your mama shows up, the same mama that you love, but you're not really close to, that you would not want to make the decisions for you, when she shows up saying,
well, I'm so-and-so's mother,
this person needs to be there and say,
I'm so-and-so's healthcare proxy. This is the legal document for that. This is not what they wanted. This is what they wanted, regardless to whether it's what I want or not. This is what they said they want.
Who's the person who's not afraid of your family? Who's the person who's not going to buckle when everybody says,
this is not your business. This is family business.
And if you are that person that everybody leans on, the person that everybody goes to, the person that everybody says, out of all my friends, you're the one that I know is going to move heaven and hell, rearrange the continents, and stop time to make things shake. If you're that person for everyone, who is that person for you? It's an important question, beloveds, because we live in some interesting times. I've said this before. People are losing their minds seemingly by the second. People are out here doing horrible things. Some, they're doing it with the intention to harm others. And some, they're just doing it with the intention to harm themselves. And a lot of them have no idea why they're doing anything. Okay? A man jumped off the roof of a building, stark naked, ran out into traffic. He done traumatized the lady because he ran in front of her car. She hit him because he just appeared out of thin air. Now, from the vantage point of the person that was recording, he was coming from across the street. But for the person who was driving, he wasn't anywhere until he was on her windshield. He got up and walked away. She sat there still screaming. People are going through changes mentally, emotionally. People are bugging.
People are bugging.
The person you have listed as your emergency contact, when was the last time you spoke to them? Are they okay? How often do you talk to them? And for how long? When you talk to them, do they sound like they're of sound mind? Like, these are real questions that you need to be asking yourself. Trust what I'm telling you, not as passion, not as the get you right guru. I'm telling you as the person who answers calls like, hi, I'd like a wellness check for my mom. She's elderly, XDX years old. She has dementia and Alzheimer's. Please tell your officers, don't just dismiss it if they find her. When you talk to her, initially she doesn't sound like there's anything wrong. But if you continue to let her talk, you'll start to hear it. She'll start saying things that sound crazy. But if you only talk to her for a couple of minutes, you won't think anything's wrong with her. You'll think she's perfectly fine. Calls where your granny is saying the people came in her house and they stole her remote. I get that call on Monday and she calls back and says it again on Tuesday. And there's offense when I ask the question, are these the same people that stole your remote yesterday? So they returned it and broke back in to steal it again? And you listen to me say it now and you laugh and it seems harmless until I'm the only one on duty who knows her voice and knows she's a chronic caller. But when she calls, she doesn't reach me. It's harmless until police show up at your door because the old lady down the hall has accused you of breaking into her house and stealing from her. It's harmless to sit there and just engage her while she rambles about nonsense until no one is available to take your actual emergency call because everyone is tied up listening to harmless people who are probably just lonely. So they're calling emergency lines to have someone to talk to because they're your relative that you don't want to be bothered to listen to. And what else? There's someone else's listed but not updated in the last 15 years emergency contact. I have to make emergency contact calls regularly. Sometimes it's for something minor and sometimes it's not. I'm calling your emergency contact and getting this.
We're sorry. You have reached a number that has been disconnected or is no longer in service. If you feel you have reached this recording in error, please check the number and try your call again.
I'm getting the person who says, I don't know who that is. I don't know why you people keep calling me, okay? I've had this number for the last 10 years. You have the wrong number. Emergency contact answers and has no idea they were listed as your emergency contact in the first place. Emergency contact answers and said, yeah, I know who that is, but I live in Montana now. Well, the address I have says you live in Manhattan. Emergency contact is a sibling. Sibling doesn't like them. Sibling doesn't speak to them. Sibling doesn't care if they live or die. Who is your point of contact? Do you have one or do you have several? Are you a single parent with a small child or small children? Do they know your emergency contact's name, number, and address by heart? Do they know where to find it? If there's an emergency, is it locked in your phone? Or is it written down somewhere where they can go and grab it and read it to whomever? My goddaughter was 5. She was at my house one night and I asked her my name and she giggled and shrugged. She said, I don't remember. I said, okay, back up, little girl. You can't sleep in my bed. You can't get in my bed. Strangers don't get in my bed. We're like, what we doing? And somebody's going to say,
Passion, that's ridiculous. A 5-year-old?
yeah. Because circle back to me getting the emergency calls. You know what missing or lost children who find themselves separated from their parents, you know what they say when someone asks them their mommy's name? Mommy. Imagine getting separated from a child and not only are you panicking because they're missing, but you're also panicking at the thought of having to explain to their parent that they're missing. All the while, this child only knows you as godmommy or titi or auntie or whatever family nickname. She's 11 and she still remembers that night, but I bet you she never forgot my name after that. In an emergency, she would at least be able to tell them my full name, and since there are only two, it would be hard not to find me. This was before I worked in this field. What emergency plan do you have in place? I'm going to do a full episode on that soon, so if you don't have one, I mean, it's not ideal, but we can build one together. But here are some precursory questions. Do you live in a community where you can get on some type of "Are you okay?" list, where you get a call at least once every day? Are you okay? In certain communities, they have that for the elder population, but a lot of people live alone. And young or old, if you're by yourself and something happens, then what? Because if I decide I don't want to text you today because I'm just tired, I have a lot going on, I'm mentally exhausted, I don't feel well myself. Who's checking on you? And who has the power of attorney? Not just decision-making power over your health, but over your estate. The power to say, listen, this is what has to happen. Who do you trust enough? And I get it. There are a lot of people who aren't very trustworthy. So some of us don't really trust anybody because we've trusted people and they've betrayed us, because we've trusted people and they failed us, because we've trusted people who have lied to our faces until they couldn't lie anymore. And after they couldn't lie anymore, they looked at us and expected us to extend mercy for them after they treated us so disgusting. Who is the person you have predetermined that, at least for now, is the person that you want making the decisions for your care, for your life? Is this the person that's going to put you in the cheapest facility because they can't give you 24-hour care? Have you thought about any of this? Your oldest child that turns their back on you whenever they get in a mood, they probably shouldn't be your healthcare proxy. Your mother that says things to you like,
I don't care what you say. I'm going to do whatever I feel like doing. I'm your mother.
they might not should be your healthcare proxy. Like, love and relationship is cool, but the person who is going to discuss your wishes with you and honor them, that's who your proxy should be. Think carefully about why you've chosen or are choosing this individual. If your spouse is useless in making decisions in the house, that's your partner, but that don't mean they should be your proxy. And that's offensive to someone.
You want to let some stranger make the decisions?
Yeah, because you show someone you aren't reliable to make simple everyday decisions that aren't life and death. People are less inclined to trust the decision you'll make back up against the wall. So yeah,
You're offended, but clearly you haven't reviewed your own habits and practices to realize this isn't about a personality contest. This is about capability. If I always got to lead and take charge, you're not the person I want making my healthcare decisions. Now let's stay on spouses and go a little bit deeper. If you're hiding health issues from your spouse, them being your healthcare proxy is absolutely going to be a disaster. Imagine expecting someone to make decisions to save your life, but they didn't know you were falling apart before you got here, which is partly how you got here. Imagine the responsibility of making decisions when you have a doctor saying, well, you know that this person has cancer, a growth, a tumor, a blockage, a rare condition, a blood disorder, and these rapid fire questions are being followed with comma, right? Question mark. And the answer is no. They knew none of that. That person shouldn't be your healthcare proxy. Because if you didn't care to be honest with them about all of the things that they might have needed to be able to relate to a practitioner, if you didn't trust them with that information when you were able-bodied and capable of speaking up for yourself, you're in the wrong hands with them if you're not capable now. Because they don't know nothing about you. Finding out your situation was dire and now you're on the express train to hopeless. Finding out about the surgery, the disease, the infection, and that any steps taken now could cause life-threatening or life-ending complications. It's like having one building fall on you and then another one fall on top of that. All I'm saying, beloveds, is that a decision needs to be made. And while a lot of us feel like, I have time, I'm only so-and-so age, we see babies die, we see elders die, and we see everybody in between die as well. Some of those deaths were probably preventable. Now, on a spiritual level, maybe their time was up. I don't know. But spirituality aside, if it's a situation where a person's life could be saved, your life could be saved, will the person you have listed as your emergency contact actually save your life? There's a difference between the people who need to be notified in the event of an emergency and the person who should be contacted because they're the person that's going to be able to do something more than just be there like a lump on a log. I want you to think about it. I want you to put together a list of people. If you're in a city where you don't have a community for whatever reason, that's a real thing. But you're going to have to do something, friend. If you don't know anybody, where would you go in an emergency? We laugh about not knowing anybody's phone number, but we don't make any efforts to learn them. We have phones that overheat and turn themselves off. Who are you calling if your phone won't turn on? We know what happened to me at the Mother's Day concert. My phone shut down and I was powerless. And even when I was composing this and I was reflecting, I said to myself, I had no one to call that could do anything. And as I was editing, it occurred to me that I could have called the one number I know by heart and asked my mother to log into my email for me. Now, I may have taken a few steps, and that's provided she answered. But the point is that there was someone I could have called, but I wasn't prepared for an emergency. So I didn't even think about that option. Meanwhile, even if I had, I would have needed to use someone else's phone. So it's a catch-22. And the joke is, if I had called my mother, she probably wouldn't have answered because she didn't recognize the number. Or if she did answer, she would have said, and that's exactly why you should have had the ticket printed out before you got there for things like this. And she would have been right. Poor planning and decision making on my part. I just went away to a foreign country with limited communication. Poor decision. A lot of us out here traveling internationally with no international service and depending on hotel Wi-Fi while planning trips and excursions off the hotel property. People know what country you're in, but once you're disconnected from service, what's the plan if anything goes even a little left? So many of us take for granted that we haven't heard from someone because they're sleeping or they're tired or they're busy. We write things off in a heartbeat and we don't think about it. When people don't speak to me, they just assume I'm busy.
Well, I mean, you're always busy, so I figured you'd call me when you had a chance.
Some of y'all are waiting for a phone call you never gonna get because that person's laying on the floor hoping that somebody will come save them. Who's your point of contact? Whose point of contact are you? Whose information do you have if things go left? Who can put you up? Who has your family information, like relatives' numbers, if you lose your phone and vice versa? Who can you call or text for someone if the only person they can reach is you? Think about it. These are not the times to not have answers to these questions. Names, numbers, addresses, emails, places of business. We need to be able to get to you. Things are real. Especially those of you that live in metropolitan areas or apartment buildings. You can literally do everything right. And your whole world can be snatched away from you because of somebody else's negligence in their apartment that impacted your apartment. Is your emergency contact somebody who will put differences to the side, even if you've had a terrible falling out? Or is it someone who prides themselves on being petty, spiteful, hateful, and vengeful? Because don't wait until the emergency to put it to the test or find out. I want you to seriously consider what we talked about today. Like I said earlier, we are in interesting times. These are not the times to be careless about the decisions we make, about who we're assigning what responsibility or who we're entrusting with what responsibilities. The person who can't remember to take the meat out the freezer might not be the person you want to choose to make decisions for your life. The person who doesn't care enough to take care of regular household duties. The person who doesn't want to help you with the groceries because they hate carrying bags. Imagine them having to carry you if you live in a walk-up apartment, or carry you from room to room because they can't afford medical equipment to move you around. You think that person's going to want to do that? They don't want to carry 2 grocery bags that weigh 10 pounds together and you weigh 200 pounds. Think about it. Really consider what you're asking of this person that you have listed as your emergency contact. The person who don't answer their phone for numbers they don't recognize, they might not should be the person. The person who doesn't listen to voicemails and only responds to text, they might not be the person. Even the person who jumps in and just tries to do whatever, they still might not be the best one for the job. You know why? Because they want to do something, but they don't think through what they're doing, and they make the situation worse. That might not be the person. You got to think about that when you make the decision as to who is going to be the person. And if everybody, somebody is the same body, that's also problematic. Everybody can depend on this one person, but who is that person able to depend on? I know I said something similar to that before, but I'm talking about when one person is the person in all of their spaces, different friend circles and family circles. The reality is nobody really thinks about it. But imagine being everyone's go-to, knowing that if the tables were turned, you'd still have to be your own go-to. It wouldn't really soften your heart and make you want to be more available to everyone because the reciprocity is missing. On the other side, if you can depend on everybody around you and nobody qualifies you as the person they can go to, that's something to consider as well. While yes, yippee, less responsibility for you, there are some people who are looking at you as inept and others who are looking at you as completely selfish. The ones who are looking at you as selfish, well, they tend to be embittered and resentful in your times of need because they know if the situation was reversed, they couldn't count on you. The ones who are questioning your confidence, often they also harbor resentment because it's unsafe to leave you to your own devices. But who wants to have to walk behind someone who is boasting of their adulthood and demanding respect as a grown individual while simultaneously acting like they need a nanny? I know someone is offended. Someone else is irritated. Someone still is thinking,
See, this is why I watch this, because I don't have time for these weekly attacks.
but if someone doesn't pose the question to you when the situation isn't chaotic, if someone doesn't suggest you think about it before the emergency, what will you do in an emergency? And if you drop the ball, who you gonna blame? I'm gonna leave you with 2 things. First, I had a call one time in the midst of a major blackout. The caller wanted to know when the power was coming back on. I had no answer for that. The caller said they had kids in the house and had no flashlights, no batteries. Basically, they had no emergency supplies. The caller was upset and talking to me like I was at fault. I didn't knock the power out, neither did I create not nary a child with this person. Why this person didn't think enough of their children to at least make sure they had a flashlight, and some batteries is completely beyond me. But when we get down to brass tacks, the issue is that they didn't think.
Nah, come on, Passion. That's a little drastic. Maybe they just forgot.
Yeah. Like the droves of people you see on lines wrapping around Home Depot and Lowe's to buy flashlights and batteries and everything else every time the news reports a hurricane or tropical storm or tornado is on the horizon. Like these things don't happen all the time. The crisis happening is not when you should prepare for a crisis. The blackout is not when you should look for the flashlight or the batteries. The power outage is not when you should be looking for the generator. When the baby is drowning, that's not when you should be thinking about swimming lessons. On the stretcher, it's not when you should be thinking about your emergency contact. Other thing, I know that some of these examples seem extreme, like somebody that doesn't want to carry bags not wanting to carry you if they had to, right? The point isn't that that extreme will ultimately be your case. The point is that you should be having the conversation in wellness so that you don't have to find out at the peak of chaos. Send your listener letters to greetings@whatonewomandoes.com. Donations can be made via Podbean, Linktree, Zelle, or PayPal. Leave a comment, drop some megaphones, tap the thumbs up, share this episode. Have your people watch it with you. Some of the hardest conversations to have are easiest to start when all you have to do is jump in instead of initiate. Believe it or not, I am trying to save your life. It's up to you if you're actually going to get saved. Okay? Go forth. Be great. Be filled with bliss. Be armed and empowered with knowledge. Choose your emergency contact wisely. It could be the difference between life and death. In all things, be passionate. See you later.